What's up, dudes? Welcome back. TripleKO, joined by Matt and Justin once again. But today we have a fourth. I'd like to introduce Frank from the Fighting Generation.
What's up, guys?
How's it going, Frank? How you doing, man?
Doing great, man. Doing great. What a time to be alive. And speaking of crossovers, how's this for a crossover?
Hey,
yeah?
hey. That's probably going to be the theme of this entire show, considering recent events. So, you know, we just wanted to talk a bit with you and sort of reflect a little bit on your website, which has had a pretty substantial impact, I think, on my life and the life of most people in the fighting game community.
Man. Absolutely. It's really crazy because it's kind of come full circle. Fighters Generation was getting off the ground when the first Capcom Versus SNK was announced. When that first artwork dropped, I saw that Kinu Nishimura artwork, and I knew most of the SNK characters, but a few of them I didn't know. And I'm like, okay, I've got to get this website, have every character, where everyone's from. And that inspiration of the first Capcom versus SNK really motivated me in the beginning. Nearly 25 years ago, I started working on the site. So,
wow, yeah, I was gonna say, I remember literally in high school for references of like fan art that I was making of Strider and stuff like that in Marvel 2, that I would go to sprites and look for key poses and sprites, and your website, and like literally web minus 2.0 at that point, was one of like the only places you can go that had sprites and things like that for characters in fighting games. And absolutely. I specifically used that for like a bunch of Marvel vs. Capcom sprites. You had glowing things to say about the MVC series, so I think I naturally connected. It was like always very highly rated.
I was very clear with the games I was a fan of. I'm sure you remember, and the games I wasn't a fan of. But I think more so the games I loved, I tried to make that very, very clear and always have a lot of content for those games. So Marvel vs. Capcom as well. Absolutely. Huge fan.
I have one quick question I've always wondered. Which character has the most pages for them? Like, that has the most artwork and animations? I assume it's Chun-Li, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Chun-Li came to mind immediately. It has to be Chun-Li, for sure.
Because I was like, it's like Chun-Li, Mai, or Morgan. So, I was like, I was like, just over because she's been around, like, I guess technically the longest, like, at least by like a year, like predates like Mai or whatever. So I'm like, it has to be her.
Yeah, absolutely, Chun-Li.
Because there's two, like, just like Max, there's two websites at the start of the 2000s where I'm like, this will inform my entire personality, like, henceforth for the rest of my life. Yep. And one is the Fighters Generation, and two, of course, is the Iron Mouse CG shrines.
Oh my God. Wow. Okay. Holy crap, my brain. Okay, go ahead.
I expected Max to say that, but Justin also gave an O.
I don't think I like been to that website, so I was like Iron Mouse CG. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's explain, Matt. Go ahead. For anybody that has not been alive that long, explain.
So basically, any female like fighting game, I think it like crossed over into anime too, but it was just mostly fighting game girls, and it was just like galleries of each one, and it was like a lot of fan art as well. So it's like official stuff and non-official stuff, and they have like a hentai version of the site and then not a hentai version of the site. It's like, don't click this, kids, like it's too scary. But the actual one like was updated like fairly regularly. But if you wanted like actual fighting game content, like with like reviews and all of the animations and stuff, and just like the biggest directory, I think it was in a video I did recently where I did it on Tattoo Assassins, where's fighting game episode on that. I was like, this game is shit when it doesn't even have a section on the Fighters Generation. It wasn't released fully, so I get it, but still, like.
Yeah. I've avoided a lot of those obscure titles. You know, I try to add them. Certain games I think deserve a look, but when it hurts my eyes to have to look at those screenshots and
you don't want anybody else looking.
It hurts me, so I don't want to hurt other people with the bad visuals.
So I got a question, because your site has been around like so long. Like most websites would not exist this long in this space. Like the the relatively speaking, you have like a lot of web space in there too. Maybe not that much for nowadays, but that much of image archiving, especially going back 20 years, is really expensive and like a lot of work. What was like the premium year from your perspective in terms of like viewership visits? We called them hits back in the day. What was like your premium hit year on TFG? Do you even know?
Good question. I don't have 100%. I'm not 100% on that, but I do think it really peaked around the time maybe Street Fighter Cross Tekken was announced, because I was doing crazy news back then, and
that's
I was
true.
really putting a lot of time into news. And whenever big games like that dropped, my website naturally got a nice boost in traffic. Still nowadays, when things drop, it helps. But I've had to scale back, not my dedication, but I got to sleep too. And I've done a lot of 4-hour nights. And now that I'm 40, I turned 40 last year. I've got to watch my health, and I've had to scale it back a little bit and be off of social media a little bit. So I've taken a break, a healthy break, being married now, a little bit different. But I still try.
I relate to all of this stuff, by the way. I relate to everything you're saying right now.
I figured, and it's probably a good time to say, I'm officially joining the FGC Dads Club.
Ooh, congratulations.
Congratulations.
My wife is just over 6 months pregnant, due in September, first child. It's a girl. And
Girl dads.
Girl dads. Yeah, FGC is really big with girl dads, man. I don't get it.
About this. Yeah, her name is Phoenix.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, that's awesome.
So,
Yeah, my daughter has a friend that's also named Phoenix. It seems to be like kind of a popular name right now. Yeah.
wow.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
crazy story. Like my kid's name is Ripley, which is kind of out there. But at the same point, I had a meeting with somebody about an Apple TV thing. They were like an Apple TV guy. And I was telling him, yeah, my daughter was just born. She's having a great time. Her name's Ripley. And the guy's like, that's my daughter's name. She's about 1 year old too. I'm like, what, really? And he's like, yeah, we're getting into the era where like all these dads are naming their kids Ripley now. So it's pretty crazy.
Awesome.
When she's older, do you pass down the fighter's generation for her to be the web mistress?
No,
Someone needs to keep it
I
going.
wouldn't wish it on her. I wouldn't wish it on her. It is too much work for me. At times, it has become that way, especially because I want to branch out and kind of do what you guys are doing. I want to. I just don't have the time,
Yeah.
But my goal
it's
is to
tough.
get back into streaming and stuff and videos. So.
Well, I do appreciate it. I mean, I think I try to hype up your website as much as I possibly can because it's been an invaluable resource for me. I literally did a Scorpion Injustice 1 animation on my YouTube channel like a long time ago where Scorpion talks and stuff. And I used all the sprites from Fighter's Generation for that because it was one of the best resources available and always has been. So for anybody that's watching this, and this is kind of like literally a web 1.0 website from way back in the day that is still going and still going strong and has amazing content. If you go to fightersgeneration.com, it is still up, it's still running, and yeah, thanks to Frank, we have these resources that are still going nowadays.
Thank you so much, Max. Really appreciate it.
So with that being said, we have so much other shit to talk about.
Oh
and
my
I think
God.
this is arguably
So
one of the
much.
best times for you to join, knowing that you're a big Marvel versus Capcom fan. But Marvel vs. Capcom isn't dead. And it's been dead. Like DEAD in the ground. The roses are coming up. We have celebrated its life in passing. And all of a sudden it came back with a halo on its head like it was a Dragon Ball episode or some shit.
Resurrection.
It's crazy, dude. So first and foremost, Justin, feelings. Go ahead.
Man, so it was crazy because I was up for the direct, and I'm like, yeah, my wife woke me up, and she's like, hey, doesn't Nintendo Direct? I'm like, oh, yeah, I usually like those things because they got some really cool indie games, and I'm just going in there, and Harper is awake, and she's just on my lap, and
That's so
I just
cute.
see, I want to take you for a ride, like the Ryu logo, and I'm like,
Done.
wait, what? Like, what's happening, right? So I'm just, in my head, I'm like, oh my god, I wish she was not on my lap because I would just lose it, curse like a store, like a sailor right now. But I couldn't. I'm just like clueless. I'm like, what am I supposed to say? I don't know what to
wish
do.
she wasn't here.
And then she's just saying, oh, I know this, Daddy. I know. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, yeah, I know you know this because you like to play on the arcade 1-up machine, right?
Yeah.
And I was I just didn't know what to say. I couldn't believe it. I didn't think it would ever come back personally, just because, the whole talks of just Marvel vs. Capcom coming to digital and everything. Like, I didn't even know how John D did it with Arcade 1-Up. That was a miracle already.
Yeah.
So the fact that Capcom and Marvel were like, hey, we're bringing this back together. I'm just like, we already had, like SNK and Capcom stuff for Street Fighter 6. So I'm just like, all right, I'm already happy with Capcom. I'm like on the Capcom train, gravy train since Street Fighter 6 came out. Now they just keep making me buy these first class tickets to stay on this Capcom gravy train, and I'm just in there, and I was so excited. Like the fact that they announced rollback and everything, I'm still like speechless to this day that like Marvel 2 is alive in some shape or form now. Like it's just so beautiful, so amazing.
I don't know how we landed in this universe where within the span of, I think, 2 to 3 weeks of each other, Capcom versus SNK is effectively back and Marvel versus Capcom is back.
It's crazy.
Yeah, you said it.
I don't like what is this, and it feels like obviously a decent amount of coordination because MVC came back at literally the best time it possibly could, because over the past 3 months, X-Men has been in a spot where it's the best it has been since like the 90s. So it's like, whoa, dude, now there's like good timing here. Now Cyclops is like the main character that's being depicted in all this fan art and stuff. And I'm like, I can't believe it. Matt, how do you feel?
So first of all, I really hate the fact that we were all at Summer Games Fest and we're talking to these Capcom guys like Andy, and they're probably all going like,
oh yeah,
like
They're
not
just giggling.
saying
he
nothing.
runs the Twitter, dude.
Yeah, so I was like, oh my god, and I was I even had mentioned something like, oh, it'd be cool if you guys would like, I don't know, occasionally throw like, I don't know, Power Stone or Rival Schools of Bone or Marvel, and he was just like a PR guy should, just nodded and said, yeah. So I just think about that moment, but when I actually saw the thing pop up for the Marvel announcement in Nintendo Direct, I didn't think it was Marvel. I thought it was still like Super Street Fighter Alpha 2 for SNES coming to Nintendo Online. There was something about the logo of Ryu that looked more pixelated, and even though it said take you for a ride, I still thought that was Nintendo marketing, like mixing up memes and not really knowing exactly what that entails. So I'm watching it with Liam, and he's in Japan right now. It's pretty late for him. And we're watching it. And I was like, he goes, it's Marvel. And I go, it's not Marvel. Come on.
There's no way. Shut up. Yeah.
No way. Max told me he was dead.
It's dead. Yeah. There's no way.
So,
like,
I lost my shit just like you or Justin or Frank or anybody else really watching it, because I couldn't believe it. And the fact that it's like all the galleries, all the rollback, all the features on online. It's not like, very like, rinky dink online system at all. And just throwing the Punisher there, which is nice because it marked the start of Capcom and Marvel's relationship. It was like the first game they worked on, which led to X-Men, which led to everything, right? And yeah, it's kind of random that a beat 'em up's there, but like, it's Punisher, baby. So it's
but it's the Punisher is also deeply rooted in the Versus series because it started the relationship with Marvel and Capcom. It wasn't Coda. There's an amazing article, I think it's on Polygon, that is like the oral history of Marvel versus Capcom.
That's the most goated article in the world.
It's incredible. It goes back to like, talking about the voice actors and how they got put into Children of the Atom. I still got to read this for like my stream because it's very long, but it also goes into like the Punisher and how much there was this one guy at Capcom that loved Marvel Comics, like loved them in the 90s, and it was him that effectively pioneered the entire thing to happen where they got the Punisher and then they eventually got the X-Men. So Punisher's being there is like a weird call. Even when it was on screen, I was like, get the hell out of here. Like it was a baby goat in The Simpsons, like push that shit out of here. But really it's actually a wonderful nod to the relationship between Marvel and Capcom.
And it made sense to not include, even though the arcade 1-ups have included the Super Nintendo Capcom Marvel games like War of the Gems and Mutant Apocalypse, then that starts to get into weird territory where these aren't even arcade games anymore.
It's SNES games.
I agree.
So it would be nice if Capcom and Nintendo could get those on like Nintendo Switch Online.
That would be cool.
or release them wherever they can be. But yeah, no, it was nice to see it. And when I think back, I was like, oh, I forgot that the Punisher was like the height of popularity in the early 90s when he had 3 or 4 sub-series, like 3-4 different comics going on at a time. So I'm like, that's why Capcom picked the Punisher at the time. Like, you know, because it seems random nowadays. Like, really? Some people didn't even know. Like, I was talking to a friend of mine. They're like, Capcom made a Punisher game? I'm like, yeah, because it's never been re-released on anything other than a bad Genesis port in 95 or some shit. So.
And you actually introduced me to this game, Matt, like, I don't know, 5-6 years ago. You told me, have you ever played the Punisher game? And I'm like, no, I haven't. Like, wait,
but you knew of it.
But I knew of it. Okay. I think it was like the second beat 'em up that came up after Final Fight for Capcom. I think it was the one that came after that, right?
Yeah. Speaking of Final Fight, I do have the shirt right here.
Show that shit off.
And I actually played the Punisher at my local bowling alley. It must have been when I was, 10, 12, something like that.
Yeah.
And I was really blown away because I was a huge Final Fight fan. And I'm like, whoa, this game is like extreme. We got guns, we got projectiles, and the shit that happens in that game is pretty wild. It's a great beat 'em up. So I'm glad it's going to be in this collection actually.
Yeah, with rollback co-op, which I also wasn't expecting.
Drop in co-op. It's crazy. Like you can
drop bill. That's crazy.
That.
Yeah, it had like some weird thing where at any point you can just like people can just join in, and all of a sudden they drop in like they're putting a quarter in. It's like, whoa, okay.
Oh,
yeah,
you know,
it wasn't. I was going to say really quickly, it wasn't the first Capcom beat 'em up after the Punisher. I think after Final Fight, Captain Commando, I think King of the Dragons was kind of in there, like around 91. But it was like a big jump from like when you can do dashes, multiple things in the air. Like it expanded, and then after that led to like. Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. Then after that, AVP, the apex of Capcom beat 'em ups, like in the 90s. So it played like a big part of that. But just the fact that like that's obviously like a nice little bonus. But just the fact, like I thought when this started to start up the announcement trailer, I was like, oh, it's Marvel versus Capcom 1 and 2.
Yes.
I was not. I also wasn't expecting Coda and all the others. So I was like, "Holy shit! They are making sure that this is the definitive thing, and we're getting a physical, and we're getting a physical with the actual game in it.
That's not so good.
Hell yeah!
Have you guys seen the sales of the pre-orders for the physical versions?
No.
They've been number 1 on Amazon for like 4 days.
I did not know that.
Number 1 PS4 game, number 1 Switch game on Amazon for like 4 days.
Yeah.
So,
great news.
and it's like, yeah, of course you want to buy the physical because that was the problem with MVC2 and Marvel Origins. They were digital only, and we were screwed because there was no physicals.
Yep.
That's actually so sick though when you think about it because it's just like if Capcom was like, give us a reason to bring back Marvel's Capcom, or Marvel's like, give us a reason to bring back Marvel's Capcom, and then you see the pre-orders being number 1 for like 4 days straight, like,
bro,
what kind of better argument do you have after that, right?
Yeah.
So
the
Frank,
Capcom
overall,
test, some would call it.
This is the big test, right? So overall, Frank, what's it like? I know you're a big Marvel versus Capcom fan, literally based on the reviews on your website I've seen of the series. So
for sure,
what's it like being in a world again where MVC actually is back or exists?
It feels just it. I can't put it into words. It's a new, like you said, the universes have aligned. It feels lighter. It feels so good because I was going to say my best friend Jet is big of a fan as MVC2 as I am, and we actually met all those years ago, 24 years ago, at the arcade playing MVC2. My number 1 best friend in the world playing that game.
That's awesome.
He lost his MVC2 data and game on his PS3 in 2015 or something.
Oh God!
Done. He had no way to play it. I'm like, you got to come to my house. My PS3. You got to
get a Dreamcast or
stay
something.
Alive. I'm just praying that my PS3 stays alive. But man, I was just coming down from the Terry Bogard announcement in Street Fighter 6 and not leaving out but I was super excited about that. And then this drops. It's just the definitive collection. It's hard to beat this collection. Think of any other fighting game collection you could
It's arguably the best one.
Yeah, you can't beat this.
Yeah, this has been So, like, I got a bit of criticism on some forums and stuff like that for my quote unquote like reaction of how this went down, how this whole thing went down. And I had to like clear it up. And I felt a little bit better after it was over when the reactions of other people started coming up. And it was, you know, just as equally losing their minds as me, because people don't know the history of these games. Some folks on a Switch Direct is going to see some 30-year-old games and be like, why are you excited about that? You can play those in any way and anywhere. And it's like, no, we couldn't. That's the point. They haven't existed. So, you know, the just is educating people that this has been such an impossibility has been fun because, you know, Free Marvel 2 was like 3 years ago now. Like, it was a long time. That's enough time for people to completely forgot it even happened, if not address it anymore. So I had to like, so this is what happened during all this shit, just to let you guys know. Like, the world came together to celebrate MVC2 #1 trending and shit like that.
For you specifically, there is a bit more context versus like most other creators, really.
Oh, yeah. But even still, like, I still feel like I became personally validated when the things that I found so like alluring and attractive about the MVC series are now over the past week of like Twitter and just what people are talking about brought to the forefront, where people love these characters. They love the way they interact. They love the goddamn handshake. Like, all these things are now premium like content for MVC fans, if not other people that were unaware of it. And it just sort of reinforces my thought process. Like, no, this shit is dope. It always has been sick. It's just that it hasn't been utilized this way in a long ass time. But if you did that, then we're going to be good. And the part that broke me, dude, was when I was sitting there dumbfounded to the trailer. And then somebody said, there's official artwork. And I saw the official artwork and I wanted to cry. I couldn't. It was perfect. It was literally everything I could ever ask for.
Love it. Awesome artwork. Yeah. And I liked what you said, Max, in one of your videos. You said, the most people in the world are going to play Marvel vs. Capcom 2 when that game drops at the same time. That blew my mind. I'm like, you're right. That's crazy.
I had to make this point for Guilty Gear Strive when that was coming out in like 2021. And I said, chat, when this game drops, because it had some good positive word of mouth beforehand, when this game drops, it'll be the most people ever in the history playing Guilty Gear at one point. Because if you think about scattered arcade ports and PS2 versions and everything like that, they do okay, but they're like spread out and small subsects of communities buy them, 100,000 people there. Bro, there is going to be, I think, arguably more people playing this than even Marvel 3 or even like Marvel Infinite at one given period of time. It's going to be a huge event.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
I hope at the last... sorry, go ahead, Frank.
Yeah. In the early 2000s and probably all the way up to 2010, my local arcade, that MVC, we had two MVC2 cabinets right next to each other, both perfectly working at our local bowling alley, Tampa Lanes, which has since closed. But I'm telling you, over 10 years, that MVC2 cabinet had a crowd, and I was there every weekend.
Yep, always.
So I have, we have a different perspective when we've been playing these games for so long. But when you said that, I'm like, man, this is going to bring so much hype to that game, and people are going to learn. The new people are going to learn how great this game actually is.
You know what's crazy about the announcement, right? Like, once the announcement happened, like, so many other like different like developers started working, like Fightcade. Fightcade say, hey, I'm gonna go improve on the Flycast, so make Marvel vs. Capcom 2 more playable for people to check this game out before the collection came out. They have the PS3 emulator that has the PS3 rollback online. I played it recently. That's one of the best. It's really good. It's so good. It's like, I was like, wow, this is literally like I'm playing PS3 online. That one is really good. A lot of people are playing on that. Like, everyone's on the Marvel 2 hype train, at least right now. Like, that's 100% a thing right now.
Yeah, and there's that little bit of like people like, like Max was pointing out, saying like, well, who cares about these 30-year-old games? And there's always something where it's like, if you don't know anything, they look like 30-year-old games, and that's it. That's the simple story. But the fact that like they've been unavailable for so long, and even then not in a collection nearly this robust, like just. Marvel Origins, God bless, and it's amazing box art main visual that's so much better than the new one that they're using.
For people's perspective, for like fighting game fans, like for us in terms of the length, the degree of impact this has, To an average Nintendo Direct, this would be the equivalent of Kratos walking out and shaking hands with Mario.
Yeah.
Where it's like, that's impossible. That can't happen. Like, people would be losing their minds if that happened. That was what an MVC collection was to almost all of us in like the FGC, if not fighting game fans for 20 years.
And it's like Capcom didn't even stop after that announcement. Oh, here's those two Phoenix Wright games, Miles Edgeworth games, one that was never available outside Japan. And then, like, the day of this recording, Wednesday, Capcom's like, here's a weird remaster remake of Dead Rising out of nowhere.
What? That got
Yeah, that came out today. Yeah.
Wait, Dead Rising, like Xbox 360?
No. Yes, it's a remake. They're not being clear. It's called Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster. So it's called DRDR.
Oh,
I saw that.
Oh, so they're remastering the first Dead Rising. So it's kind of like what they did with RE4 back in 2013 or something like that.
It looks more significant than that. Like the opening cutscene looks like completely different models.
Weird.
They don't have the original voice actor, which people are already kind of like.
I posted. I'll post
there's
a link.
New voices? Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Let me
I'll
know.
post
For Frank, at least.
Yeah,
I just
I'll
woke
post a
up
link
and
there,
got here, so I'm that's crazy. I'm not okay. So number one, I don't like Dead Rising, but I think that's interesting that they're doing this. I don't like Frank West, but I think it's interesting that this is all happening right around the same time.
Dude, Capcom is cooking though. Capcom's cooking.
These fools are cooking, and they have potentially one of their biggest years ever coming up next year because of Monster Hunter.
Yes.
Speaking of remakes, do any of you guys know why they haven't remade Beautiful Joe, remastered Beautiful Joe? One of my favorite 2D platformers. Where's that?
So they have done some recent releases. I'm only thinking maybe it's something to do with Clover Studios where they were being respectful to those dudes in some way. But they have re-released Okami.
Several times.
Several times.
Exactly, 20 times.
So yeah, I would like to think that maybe somewhere down the line, like an up-res Beautiful Joe 1 and 2 could happen. That makes sense to me.
As much as I would like it, and as much as like they have like a huge fan base now, it's like, oh, we'll re-release God Hand. It's like God Hand was a massive failure financially at the time. And I don't think anyone at Capcom is like, can we really risk this? Can we really put this out and no one buys it again? But like, the 20,000 people that are really, really into it, me included, like I could see that. But Beautiful Joe, enough of a success initially, keep Deonte in it. In the PS2 version, like a 2-pack of like 1, 2, and the Red Hot Rumble, even though that's not like a great game, that I could easily see being a thing. But I think it is Max being right about them going like, it's kind of like Mega Man, where a lot of developers at Capcom are still kind of like, well, can I really bring back Mega Man? Like 11 did great, but at the same time, I think it's just this hesitancy.
Yeah, Capcom's crazy. I think I do want the same thing from as Frank is explaining to what they did with like Ghosts and Goblins, where it's like, you can do like a lower scale, like AA sort of like Beautiful Joe release. There's definitely a space for that because Ghosts and Goblins and even Mega Man 11 to a degree were great examples of those games did fine, like did relatively well, and they were lower scale without being like massive overhauls,
Yeah,
so
Babe Ruthless just said on Twitter today, said the exact same thing. Max said, like, why didn't that Ghosts and Goblins reboot kind of kickstart that a little bit more? Exactly. It's been like 4 years since that came out.
Yeah.
So I have some observations I was making over some Marvel 2 heads, because I've been visiting a lot of Marvel 2 heads, and they all play on RPCS3 online. And I was talking a bit about them, and me and Justin talked about this a lot during the Free Marvel 2 movement, that all the ports of MVC2 that we've had, like in the past, the Dreamcast port, the PlayStation ports, right? PS3 360, these games were bare bones AF. Like, there's no rematch, dude. If you want to fight the same person you just fought, offline or online, you have to go through a selection process that includes 7 or 8 selections for player 1 and 2 before you can even start fighting again, like even a rematch. So there's some goofy things in MVC that are like shockingly archaic. And we were talking about in Free Marvel 2, where it's like, oh yeah, dude, like a rematch option would be great. Like, just let us just rematch each other. A ratio mode would be great. The things that fans have effectively modded into these games, and Justin has highlighted before.
I feel like because of the Marvel 2, and we haven't seen everything. We just see like kind of like screenshots, and we got like the hitboxes and hurtboxes of Marvel 2.
Yeah.
I think it's a 50-50 if we have a rematch button. I feel like it's a 50-50.
I don't.
And I agree with you. You know why? So when we were first looking at like what version is this shit?
Yes,
Like, what are we looking at here? And they're like, it's arcade version. Here's the ROM. It listed on the website, the Japanese US ROM. I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. That'll make some people happy. That'll make some people upset. You know, the hardcore Marvel fans. And then right after that, they show training stage with hitboxes, and I'm like, that doesn't line up. There's no training stage in the arcade version, brother. What are we looking at here? So I'm genuinely like, wait, what is going on? Did you go in and actually change the source code of the game? Did you actually like add training stage, a whole new stage slot, this is a lot of work, bro. Adding all of these functionalities to the game, or is this like a weird Dreamcast emulator that's working right here, and then the arcade? I don't know. I legit have no clue, but it does lead me to the point, like Justin is saying, like, dude, if they're already going through all of this work, they got to put like a rematch button in there or something.
50-50. I truly think so.
Plus, if it's the same team that worked on Capcom Fighting Collection and the Beat 'em Up Collection, let's say, it's still using the same branding and stuff, like those had lots of great functionality additions. So I have to imagine. Do we want to touch upon the weird Xbox stuff? Because that's still so strange to me.
I can give my take on it.
I haven't heard it yet, so I would like to
my
know.
take is that Xbox, over the past like 6 months, just dropped enough money to buy several countries on Call of Duty and Activision, and they don't have any scrap to deal with any other smaller games, bullshit games like this. That's honestly my take, dude.
That makes sense.
So the core issue is that someone needs to update something so that certain games on certain engines have Xbox compatibility or something to that effect. Yeah,
sure.
Like MT Framework, but these collections still work on MT Framework. They don't work on RE Engine.
No. So from what I understand, the Capcom Fighting Collection and this Marvel vs. Capcom Collection are like the same thing. They're running on the same exact bones that the Capcom Fighting Collection did back in 2022. And the Capcom Fighting Collection in 2022 is an Xbox One game. And it works on Xbox One, and it works on Series X and S. It's the same thing with CFC 2 years ago. It's a PS4 game, never made a PS5 version. Pretty smart, because who gives a shit about a next generation upgrade to a bunch of old games? Doesn't need it. So the same thing's happening into this one, where it's like, okay, here's a PS4 version, Switch version, and PC version. It's the exact same situation as the Capcom Fighting Collection, but now there's no Xbox. But something has changed with Xbox. The massive buyout, the swath of cancellations, a lot of smaller projects going downhill, not being approved and stuff. And also, they have been phasing out Xbox One games. They've been phasing out releasing XB1 games that are backwards compatible, like new games, new SKUs that are Xbox One titles that work with Series X and S. So
it's Capcom talking to Microsoft. Microsoft saying we're not supporting that right now, and then Capcom's like, we're not going to waste resources making a Series S and X version because it doesn't need it. That's an extra cost that we shouldn't be incurred with. You should update this. And you're saying Microsoft is like, we're constantly burning down all the time. We have no games. So there's problems with all of them. We're not going to spend our time on this.
That's close to what my take on the situation is, just based on the fact is, like, well, obviously Sony is like, half our player base is still on PS4s. We're cool with that shit.
Yeah,
Microsoft is like, we're phasing out XB1. Like, we want to stop releasing XB1 SKUs. This was years ago they said this. So to me, that just makes sense, because again, this collection was not going to have a Series X and S version. And this is a purely hypothetical situation I'm talking about here. But they might have gone to Microsoft and been like, hey, so our Xbox One port of this, it doesn't work. Can we get some assistance on Series X and S? And Microsoft is like, we just dropped $90 billion. You want us to help you with your... No. Like, no, we're canceling all of our other flagship titles right now, okay?
I've never owned an Xbox. I just wanted to say that. I've always had a PlayStation, and then I moved to PC as my main platform. But I've noticed over the years, some fighting games don't get that Xbox release. Same kind of thing with Nintendo Switch at times. So
it took a long time for GG to show up.
Where I kind of feel for Xbox hardcores is that they did make, I saw people making points and I was like, oh shit, you're right. Is that there's never been a Marvel versus Capcom re-release that has not had an Xbox version.
It's true.
This will be the first, like the original Marvel versus Capcom 2 did, like, and every one up until then. So I'm like, I kind of, if you're that like, you know, loyal to your platform and that's what you use, like, yeah, that really sucks. There's no other way to put it. But if Microsoft's not playing ball and Capcom doesn't want to spend the money, which is
purely hypothetical,
yeah,
we're never gonna know. Until somebody asks Phil directly about it, you know, and then Phil comes up with some sort of response, then we'll actually have some idea. But to me, all the pieces sort of line up. Yeah, they've been phasing out Xbox One games, and this clearly was not going to be a current generation title. It's designed for older gen so that it works on a higher compatibility of systems.
Yeah. But that's really hard because Phil's hitbox is like incredibly narrow because he'll never answer a question. He's like Neo. He just fucking dodges all of them. So
I think the bigger news, even outside of the Xbox news, is the other side of it, is the positive of it. Marvel versus Capcom in its entirety, the whole series, has never been on a Nintendo platform.
Oh,
Ever.
wow. Really? Even
even
Origins was never on like the Wii or anything like that.
PS3 360. This is the first time any MVC game going back to Punisher to Coda to Marvel 2 has never been on a Nintendo platform. This is the first time, which is why its announcement at the Nintendo Direct was even crazier.
Yeah.
So when Marvel Superheroes War of the Gems was announced and I saw like a thing in Nintendo Power of it, I was so hyped because I thought that was going to be an SNES exclusive version of like Marvel Superheroes, like the fighting game. And when I saw it's like one of the worst beat 'em ups Capcom's ever made, I was so pissed. I was opening up a comic book too, and I'd see the big dumb ad of like the Hulk going, "Urgh," and everyone surrounding the logo. And they even modeled most of the sprites after their sprite design from the fighting game.
From Marvel Superheroes,
Yeah.
I when Arcade 1-Up was like, we're including War of the Gems on this thing, and I'm like, all right.
Okay. You know, it was funny because they asked me for my opinion because I was working on that project, and I'm just like, I don't think anyone would care. I told them straight up, like, are you gonna have a leaderboard? It's gonna be online somehow? Like, no, it's just gonna play offline. I'm like, yeah, I personally don't think anyone's going to care about this.
I don't think anybody did.
You can make a slight case for Mutant Apocalypse, but
Mutant Apocalypse, it's way better.
It's way better than War of the Gems, but like it always bugged me that happened. Like, and because even Alpha 2, as compromised as it is, runs on a Super Nintendo. You could have made an attempt. Could have been made. Is all I'm saying.
That's a miracle port.
It is a miracle port.
But speaking of how crazy the game is selling, like you said on Amazon. The fact that it's coming to Switch, I mean, that's great news for the game, for the community. MVC2 portable. I mean, how long have we been waiting for this? You know, this collection.
That's so. And the fact that it's going to be feature rich. The fact that even like portably. The nice part, and I just checked this in the Capcom Fighting Collection. I turned it on to see like how does this game work because this is running on the same bones as the new collection. So I just went on to matchmaking. And I just like fought people, selected something, and I was on the PC version. And yeah, dude, I was fighting some guy in Switzerland or something, or Finland. And I didn't even know. He's like, I'm in Finland. I'm like, what the hell? We were fighting in VSAV. I was like, holy crap, dude. So that's good. That means that the netcode will get even better, you know?
Yeah, at that time, I was actually watching your stream. You just jumped on to a Vampire Savior. I was like, how is the netcode and Capcom Fighting Collection? And I saw it was clean. You had a streak going, too. Pretty nice.
Dude, that game is a breeze to play, by the way. I don't even mean like the quality of the gameplay itself. The quality of my experience jumping into a lobby, clicking search, doing that, going into training. It's a breeze. It's so easy to do anything. I don't know. I mean, Justin might remember the PS3 360 version of Marvel 2. Bro, you can't even get into a lobby with people without like crashing, and you're stuck, and you're like, I just got to reset my system.
The worst part that tilted me the most on PS3 and Xbox 360 Marvel is when you set your buttons and it doesn't save. It just defaults. And I'm like, why did it not save? I literally just went through the button config and hit save and hit accept. And then I go to a match and it's like different buttons all over again. I'm like, what is happening?
So it was so weird. I'm going to start making some gift sub bets on balance stuff because there's some hilarious disparities between OG versions of Marvel. Dreamcast, arcade have differences. Like arcade slows down more, allowing for Storm Super Mash to work even better in some situations, right? And then the PS2 version, Xbox, forget them. We don't care.
Trash.
They're weird versions of the game.
Yeah.
But the PS3 and 360 have a massive amount of changes of what happened to the core gameplay compared to like the Dreamcast version and stuff, which is what it was based on. Like Cable's Air Hyper Viper Beam was 1 frame.
No, it's 0 frames.
It's 0 frames, right? So if you're not blocking, if you're not holding back, you cannot react after Super Flash with back.
Yes.
It hits you like it's a Zangief command grab.
Yeah.
It is crazy. And I'm like, bro, this is not the way this shit used to be. I remember noticing that day one.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that we got to start taking bets on weird differences. I'm like, does that get fixed? Does the Gambit glitch work? Does this thing work? Does that thing work? There's going to be a lot of stuff that has changed from different versions of MVC2 over the years that I'm like genuinely curious. Okay, so this new arcade port, like, what is it? Like, which version of the game are we actually playing? Is it true arcade version, or is it going to be something weird in between where it actually has like fixes, you know?
I feel like they're going to add fixes, just because they're already adding like training mode, hitboxes and hurt boxes.
Yeah.
So I do think they'll fix the glitch, especially like glitches that are breaking the game, like Gambit's glitch or Ruby Heart's glitches.
Yeah.
Like, but I do think we'll find new glitches like Magnetro and like the Marvel 2, the hardcore Marvel 2 community that likes to find those type of like bugs. I think they will find those bugs. They will find definitely Marvel 2 bugs just because of the way the game works in general.
The nature
like
of the game.
Yeah, I don't think the developers can figure every bug out. Like unless they hire Mayosuke, the combo video people, like that's the only way possible I could think of.
Yeah, because like no matter what re-release, no matter what year, there's so many characters, there's so many like things that need to be looked at and updated like on a new release that it's hard. I remember, I think I'm going to talk to this previous episode, but when Third Strike Online was being tested at a company in my hometown, and someone like a test lead was like, put like 3 or 4 guys on it. Who cares? It's a fighting game.
Yeah.
And then someone showed them here's all the dip switch settings. These changed the game. And the guy's like, oh. And he needs to go to his boss and say, I need like 15 guys on this game now.
Oh, yeah.
I just thought it was a dumb baby fighting game for baby idiots. I didn't like this guy, like his main game was Pro Evolution Soccer, right? He doesn't like know anything about this, which is not general knowledge. That's fine. Yeah. But he just had no idea. So this is going to happen with every OG like old release of a fighting game ever. Like, but
dude,
I'd assume they would. Do you think they'd actually put it so that like you can switch between versions, like or ROMs, or do you think that's too much?
I'm almost wondering if that's it. I'm almost wondering if like there's a Dreamcast version and an arcade version, but the website only lists the arcade version.
Yeah.
Okay. I think they only do arcade just because like you mentioned PS3, Xbox 360, there's just funky stuff with like Cable, Magneto's faster in that version. Dreamcast is also faster than arcade as well too. So I would assume if they're gonna stick with one, they'll probably stick with just the arcade version just to keep it true to the collection.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the weird part about like, so what is the training mode thing? Is that like a Dreamcast situation where it just boots up like a Dreamcast save state and here's training mode, you know?
Yeah.
And they don't give you access to it. But there's a problem with that where if we're playing versus mode of the arcade version and then we're doing training mode, that's a weird disparity. Like that, you can't do that. Where you can't just pull training mode from one version of the game and have us play the arcade version because there are differences between those two versions.
It's crazy because I really do think they seem like they put, it's not just like hey, we're just gonna take this ROM and just dump it and make a collection.
Yeah.
They're putting like a lot of like, you know, front and back end coding to this, and also this is for every game of their title, not just Marvel 2, right? So they have like Marvel 1 hurt boxes and the other ones. So it just seems like an overall revamp of like really showing love to the game itself.
Yeah. And that the only time we ever saw this equal amount of like love and care really put into these games where the developers actually get into like the code of the game and start adding things and changing things goes back to Iron Galaxy. For the Marvel Origins collection was amazing.
Yeah.
Third Strike Online Edition is like the best. Yeah, Darkstalkers. Like there are things in these games that are significantly better and like revamped than the arcade versions because they got into the game and actually changed stuff instead of dropping a ROM, which is what they mostly did with the Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I have to remind people, I'm like, this is not that, guys. Like, you fight somebody in Third Strike 30th Anniversary Collection, and you win, and you don't even see the win screen. You don't even, like, it cuts off for, like, a rematch thing comes up before you even get to the grading of the character in Third Strike. I'm like, bro, you're literally removing the game experience. What is happening here?
Wow.
I was playing that. I was playing that version with my friend Rocky like 3 days ago because it's all he has.
Sure.
And like he's not gonna, he doesn't boot up Fight Kit or anything. And I was like, yeah, no, it's fine. It's just casual matches or whatever.
Sure.
And I forgot about that stuff. Like you don't even see those screens because it
Bugs
just goes
the
straight
shit
to.
out of me.
It goes straight to, do you want to play Alpha 2 now? No, I want to play Third Strike. Like for the rematch, it bounces between both games or whatever you've selected. Yeah. I forget what we did, but there's just a lot going on now. I wanted to also ask about this because I think you put a video out like this, Max, but I haven't watched it yet. Is like, does this mean anything for a potential new game at all?
Well, I've talked about it a lot on my stream. I want to hear what Frank has to think about this.
I would like to hear that as well.
Like Frank, what do you feel like in the Versus series aspect, based on the reaction and everything? Where do you think we're at for the future of Marvel?
Well, like you said, X-Men '97 being out just a few months ago, I was really impressed with it. By the way, I think it's a perfect time to get Marvel back on the right track as far as games go, at least. I was also going to say it really bodes well for Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection that it's actually a sequel to Capcom Fighting Collection, which
they're like in a specific genre now, right?
Yeah,
I like it. The fact that it's a sequel, and hopefully they worked out all the little bugs. Smooth online, feature rich. So really looking forward to just playing Marvel 2 again and all of the classics. I mean, so you could spend so many hours, so many teams just with this collection. So I don't see Capcom releasing a new MVC in the next few years or anything, but
sure.
Hopefully, I definitely really want to see a next gen MVC with like Street Fighter 6 graphics, maybe a little more cartoony. Everybody wants to see that.
So I think that the next question I got is, and we'll go to Justin and Matt before we move into some other topics because we've spent a long time talking about this appropriately.
Well deserved.
Frank, if there is even a future for the Marvel vs. Capcom series, bro, where do they go? Like, what do they? Every MVC game has to like one up the next one in some way. Where the heck do you even go with that? Do you have any ideas?
Four characters per team.
I like this guy.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. 4 characters, 8 total. Yeah.
We up the ante every time. We got to keep going. Four per team. It's never been done yet, right? It's never been done.
I'm just saying that just makes sense.
You resurrect the gem system from Cross Tekken, but you make them infinity stones.
We already
Justin's
did that.
Shaking his head. Justin's shaking his head. He's like,
there's lots of potential.
Four is too much, man. I think 4 is way too much.
And I agree. 4v4 seems like you can't ask people to learn 4 goddamn characters, dude. But at the same point, I remember feeling that exact same way in launch week of MVC2, where it was like, compared to all the other Versus games that came before it, it was like, oh, this game is just a mishmash of bullshit. Like, what is this? This doesn't even have any of the tact or nuance that MVC1 and X-Men versus Street Fighter has. Oh, that's actually just fine. Oh, it's actually amazing.
No, I mean,
the way that they took, your mediums away from MVC2, just the 2-button attacks and then 2 buttons for assist. I remember playing arcade at the arcades. I was playing a kid who really didn't know what he was doing, and his mom was next to him. He was an older kid, like my age, and I was playing my team, Cable, Juggernaut, Guile, and I had a nice streak going. And he's like, "These buttons don't work. The fierce buttons don't work. It's assists. It's assists now." Yeah. And I heard his mom say, "Oh, this guy thinks he's good. He thinks he's good, but the side's broken." I'm like, "Whatever, guys. Whatever."
I remember you actually tweeted this literally I think yesterday or 2 days ago, Max, where you're saying, did people forget that when Marvel 2 first came out, people hated this game.
People
because
hated it, dude.
I definitely was on the same way because I was like, what is this 4-button fighting game crap? You know, give me my 6-button, give me my 6-button jab, medium, the jab, strong, fierce. Give me those buttons back. And the music, they took away the character themes and everything that we're so used to from Marvel 1.
Trash.
Yeah, none of us want to change from the arcade days. Obviously, now Marvel 2 has aged like fine wine, like crazy. But when it first came out, we're like, damn, no story endings. We just get like this random comic book strip and then just credits, like nothing. Like it was to us growing up in arcade. That was like, this game is trash, right?
Yep.
But now it's like.
Wrong.
Yeah. But now it's like this is such an amazing game, right? But that was not the first impression that you had if you were growing up like during the X-Men vs Street Fighter to Marvel 1 to Marvel 2 days.
I had to remind people on Twitter, month 1 Marvel 2 was not kind to the game. It grew over time. Like it helped it with the value of time, it made it only better.
Yeah.
The music thing that people are talking about, we're like, what are you talking about? It's a goated OST. It's so good. And the people that either were not born yet or like Dino, who was like 2 years old or some shit when it came out. No, I remember that for years. Like, this is one of the trashiest OSTs of all time.
Yeah.
And it is, people just weren't ready for it. That's all it was.
So I have, like, obviously I play with people every weekend with video games. Kenny likes the soundtrack. Simmons likes the soundtrack. But Steve was the most hardcore MVC2 guy, way more than me way back in the day. He actually plays good teams in that game. And he feels the same way. He keeps his sentiment from the early 2000s. He's like, the music in this game's trash. He doesn't like it. So it's like, what he's saying is true. That's the way the majority of people that played these games back in the early 2000s felt about it. It was over time, the uniqueness of the music sort of gave it more of an identity than the previous MVC games.
Yeah, the jazziness, it always puts me in a good mood. It adds to the happiness vibe of MVC2. It's always, I'm always happy when I'm playing MVC2. And
listen,
part of
guys,
that has to be the soundtrack.
If you're not playing Ricky Martin Living La Vida Loca on Marvel 2, you're not playing Marvel 2, okay? That's all I know.
The bootleg versions of MVC2 were some of the best aspects of Capcom fighting games. Bootleg CVS2, bootleg MVC2 was amazing.
It was so good.
The thing back in the day when I first saw the arcade cabinet, started playing it, that like made me go, wow, this looks awesome, was just the stages, the 3D stages alone. And I played this before I played like Capcom versus SNK 2. So seeing 3D stages made me go, oh my God, it's like a new, like, I don't know, graphical engine, whatever you would call it back in the day, because you didn't know, much about how these things were made yet. And I just went like, oh my God, that looks so awesome. Thought it looked just as awesome in Capcom versus SNK 2, which leads me to go for the next thing that Capcom does with this. It's like, I don't think a Marvel vs. Capcom 4 is happening anytime soon, but whatever dark wizardry that they've done to emulate Marvel vs. Capcom 2, now I'd like to think means a 3D Capcom fighting collection is the next possible
please.
I'd like
thing.
to. So
I'd really like to.
I have to also remind people how substantially impactful this is, in the same way that the Terry and Mai showing up is a big deal. Marvel coming back is a big deal. There's also another big deal on a back end level. Naomi and Dreamcast games are really hard to emulate.
Yes.
They're not hard to emulate for us at home. They're not. Like for computers that just have all the access to everything in the world, but for specific hardware, like current generational hardware, there is not a lot of Dreamcast ports, and the expertise to do that has not existed. So this is the first time Capcom has ever stepped into their wide collection of Naomi/Dreamcast games where they are trying to do something, and they have effectively done it. MVC2 is being ported. So this is a huge step for that era of Capcom games to actually come back in some way. Speaking of like Project Justice and CVS2, CVS1, like all of those games, there's a ton of games in that collection because Capcom and Sega were like in bed together with that hardware.
I'd also like to think with Capcom and SNK doing stuff together.
Of course.
And that, a tweet or like a translated quote saying from, I believe it was from SNK, that said, if Mai and Terry do very well in Street Fighter 6, we will consider looking at that thing.
That thing.
At that thing again.
So it's like, are they talking about CVS collection or a new CVS? It's like, bro, dude.
That's why
both.
he said that thing.
I will take both.
Either
take
one.
both.
Because to me, like as Frank said, the fact that this is a series, the Capcom Fighting Collection series, and it's worthy of it. Capcom's put out a bunch of other things like their arcade collections and the beat 'em up bundle. Beat 'em up bundle is also in the same engine sort of thing that they use. So the fact that this is now considered a series just leads me to think, oh, well, you don't call it the Capcom Fighting Collection series without, making more games.
Yeah.
So to me, this is a clear step in the same direction. Oh, they figured out Dreamcast Naomi emulation. Well, dude, CVS is right there. Like Capcom versus SNK 1 is on Naomi, CVS 2 is on Naomi. There's the only outlier is friggin' SVC Chaos. So that's part of it, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe Match of the Millennium as well.
Emulation has gotten so much better over the years, and if you have a PC, it is easy to play games like Project Justice, every Dreamcast game. So I'd imagine the fact that exists, it's got to make it easier for that to cross over onto consoles, port over.
Eventually,
It would. This feels like this is the beginning of something like extremely cool, and you would like to think that Capcom is like, oh yeah, Power Stone and Project Justice would go pretty well in a collection together.
Oh yes, that sounds
throw
great.
Star Gladiator in there, Plasma Sword, like fuck it, man. Like
Just
these
do
are
a
all
3D collection.
games.
Yeah, 3D
Yes.
Capcom collection is called a day.
The
Call
only
it a day.
thing I have to add to this conversation was when Terry and Mai were announced. We were at Summer Games Fest, and I had a meeting with Nakayama-san, and we talked about this, I think, on the last podcast, but I specifically asked them about like the CVS collection, and revisiting that conversation was funny to me after the MVC collection was announced, because I told them that like these old games are so good, CVS collection would be amazing to have. Is this like a stepping stone for that? And their response was a little generalized, but they were like, we have many wonderful old Capcom fighting games that we didn't forget and we would love to do something with.
Yeah.
So they were like pretty much acknowledging that there's a Marvel collection getting announced next week, dude. So just wait a little bit.
I mean,
Just wait a little bit.
Say, on behalf of the entire fighting game community and especially the hardcore MVC2 community, thank you, Max, for everything you've done. The free MVC2 movement. I mean, I was right there retweeting you all the way.
Thank you.
And talking about Capcom versus SNK as well. I mean, this can feed into the next one, and if fans express what they want to see, I mean, that is proven to go such a long way. I really appreciate it, but I keep telling people that I can't take all the credit. Like I just lit the fire, and then like everybody showed up. Like the amount of support that campaign got was mind blowing. That was awesome. People were on WWEs with free Marvel with free Marvel 2. There was free MVC2 cosplay rolling around conventions and stuff. Like and I don't think that was exclusively me. I do really appreciate it, but I think the power of Marvel 2 as a game, it's easily one of the most revered and beloved fighting games of all time, like straight up. And if you're going to ask people to get behind you, hey, would you like to bring back one of the most revered and classic and most beloved retro fighting games of all time that is literally stuck in prison? Yeah, of course I would. Yeah, of course. Everyone's going to get behind on that, So that was the whole point of it.
On that note, I got a question for you, Justin. When you think about the impact that Street Fighter 2 had in that series when it hit arcades, it's really hard to think about any other games at that time that had such a pivotal impact and really changed the face of arcades, right?
Yeah.
But then you think Marvel vs. Capcom 2, right? 10 years later or something. It's almost just as pivotal as Street Fighter 2, I think. MVC2. What do you think about that?
I feel like in the USA standpoint, that's the case.
Yeah.
Like, because I feel like we always talked about, like, at least from the competitive scene, Marvel is not a worldwide game. Like, a lot of people from, like, Europe or Latin America or, like, Asia, they didn't really like Marvel 2. Like, more people play Marvel 2 now, and it's because of, like, what we all mentioned earlier, that it's easier to play now, it's on PC. But a lot of people didn't really play Marvel 2 unless you were from like an arcade in New York City or not or in America, or just like a random mall that would have a Marvel 2 machine. But it's also, like we grew up with X-Men, right? Like that's a cartoon, the animated series that everyone truly love, and just seeing that Marvel was a fighting game, people wanted to play that. So that's just kind of my take on it, because like anytime there was a tournament, like a worldwide tournament like EVO, for example, Marvel 2, like literally 99% of entrants were at least all people from North America. Not many people from Latin America or Asia. Marvel 3, that's when more international players played because it was on PC, easier to play. It wasn't just arcade only, and more people got into it because of just the ease of play. But now though, Marvel 2, like the competitive scene, there's amazing players all over Latin America. Asia plays now. The Philippines is really, really strong as well too. I think the only country or the only place that doesn't really play Marvel 2 is Europe. But everywhere else around the world does play Marvel 2.
Yeah. And even in Japan, they have a pretty big scene nowadays.
Yeah. I know that we had a great scene in Tampa, like so many arcades in Florida and everything. Yeah. And I just know for a fact that MVC2 was keeping the doors open at some of those arcades.
Oh, same in Chinatown. Same at my arcade, yeah.
Keeping the doors open, keeping the bills being paid, you know?
Yeah, even to the finality of Family Fun Arcade, the premium games at Family Fun Arcade were always MVC2 and Third Strike.
Yeah.
So they like ran that arcade for a very long time. You go there on a weekend and bro, it would be an absolute like packed room of people that you can't even walk through because MVC2's in the middle and like the coin machines on the other end of those people and everyone's just like, watching Duck roll over some dude or something like that. It was like, you know, it was the best. So in my situation, it was the same thing.
Yeah. I remember putting my quarter up. I was like the eighth quarter on that machine. I'm like, dang, I gotta wait a while to get a drink. And you don't want to lose when the line is that long. You do not want to lose. Sure. You got something else to do for 30 minutes if you lose.
Well, maybe not that go ahead, Matt.
I was going to say, well, I love that you have all those experiences at those arcades, and those are specific to you. And like Montreal, which is obviously like a much smaller city than like most of those, I'll just always be amazed that whenever I went in the arcades, like the two major arcades we had, it was like all the 2D games were usually abandoned, and everyone was playing Soul Calibur and Tekken Tag 1. Like that's where the big lines were, and I would like not want to be in a big line. I want to play the games that were free, so I would play Third Strike, Alpha 3, and Marvel 2.
It's awesome you mentioned that because the at my arcade, the Tekken Tag Tournament 2 was. I'm sorry, the Tekken Tag Tournament cabinet was right behind MVC2, and the players at our arcade were cool. I could put my quarter up and wait and go play Tekken Tag.
Oh yeah,
while I'm waiting in line, you know.
Yeah, you could do that back in the day. Yeah, so I learned how to like master House of the Dead because it was right next to the Marvel 1 machine in 1998, 1997, and I would just play House of the Dead because it was like cheaper. It was a little bit older of a game, and I would wait for MVC 1 because it would take 30 minutes to get your turn on that machine, and I would just beat House of the Dead. So that's how I ended up loving that game. So yeah, there was like a code of ethics where people weren't really stealing quarters and stuff.
This is completely random, but I wanted to mention it to you, Max, specifically. When I was in LA, I went with my friend Casey, who like is an amazing voice actor, and we went to a round 1. Sega has made a light gun shooter based on Mission Impossible that I had no idea about, and it's cool as fuck.
It's wild. Yeah. I saw it. It's like not Confidential Mission.
Yeah.
You remember that game? It's like not Virtua Cop Confidential Mission. It's like a sequel to that, but it's specifically Mission Impossible.
Like you have to shoot people with 2 guns. Then there's QTEs that you have to like like a rhythm game almost to get through like the wire traps. And then there's a numerical keypad on it that you have to put in buttons to hack shit.
Yeah. It's so cool.
I just thought that was wild. I had no idea it existed.
Yeah, so. The fact that like Sega released a new House of the Dead and that within like the last 5 years and they're actually fun, like is amazing to me, you know?
Yeah, but I really wanted Scarlet Dawn to be there, but I still have not played
You have not played Scarlet Dawn?
It wasn't at the round 1.
It's easily like top 3, top 2 House of the Deads.
Port that shit. Sega port that.
It's emulatable, just to throw that out.
I know. But
it just runs on Windows.
All right.
House of the Dead 2 was so good. Time Crisis, Time Crisis 2, Time Crisis 3, loved all those, especially when your gun has the feedback. Man, that feels so good. You get like a workout after playing for 30, 40 minutes. Your arms are
the
tired.
trigger finger.
Love that.
So we could probably keep talking about MVC2. That's the impact of the Versus series overall. How I think me and Justin are relatively disappointed which version of X-Men versus Street Fighter they're using, and I think that is in respect to the developers, because that was the last developed version of the game that they intended to release, because it fixed it was 4 or 5 versions down the line. They fixed a lot of bugs and crazy infinites and stuff.
Yeah, can you guys be specific on that? Because I'm actually really interested in.
Justin, explain.
So on the trailer, they showed the you know how they show you the ROM number. The ROM number was the Sega Saturn version, where if you do there's flying screen. So if Cyclops does his infamous infinite combo, it knocks the opponent down right away instead of causing a juggle state. So they fixed a lot of that type of stuff. But when I tweeted that, somebody told me on the website they listed multiple ROMs. So you could play the one that everyone wants to play, the Infinite version, or the Sega Saturn version where they patched that shit out. So there's multiple options for that now, I guess.
And by the Sega Saturn version, we don't mean the Sega Saturn game, because the Sega Saturn game is not actually arcade perfect. It's really close, but it isn't. The Sega Saturn balancing was based on the last version of X-Men versus Street Fighter, not the earlier ones where the infinites were way more abundant and every character essentially had a corner infinite.
Yeah. I do have to say this. I didn't have a Saturn. I had a PS1 at the time, and I got X-Men versus Street Fighter. I already knew what I was getting into. I knew it was 1v1, but I loved it anyway.
Me too. I loved it too. I'm not gonna lie.
No times were 1 minute.
Dude, we've gone back to X-Men VSF, Marvel Superheroes versus SF, and MVC1 on PlayStation, and they are clearly inferior shit versions of the games, but they're also awesome because they have DHCs and shit. They have weird mechanics in them that don't make any sense, but they're kind of crazy because of it.
Yeah, it's like they gave that as a bonus to kind of offset the limitations. Sure, here's some unique combos you can do. I mean, that's for the time. That's a pretty cool bonus feature.
Wash down the bad taste.
Something we haven't talked about, and I almost wish they didn't reveal this stuff on the website, but Max's reaction of just going to the extra bonus characters that they all are putting in the games.
That was crazy.
I kind of wish they didn't reveal that shit and only revealed it until launch.
Yeah.
Because that would have been crazy.
That's a good point, and we need to talk about that. Jeez, I realize most of this podcast, we have all these other topics. We need to talk about Bison at least before the podcast is over.
Yeah, a little bit.
This is interesting, and I think this is what most people want to hear. I am tinfoil hat theory, just based on the MVC2 training stage and the fact that they're adding characters and all this stuff. They're getting into these games and changing stuff, which is sort of cool. They're adding quality of life elements to the entire experience. I'm wondering, this is the first trailer.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
This is the first trailer. The game's not out yet. Who knows when the game's coming out? It could be weeks and months. It could be the end of the year. So what happens in the next trailers? Do we just show the same stuff again? Or is there other things that are possibly in here?
Well, did they not, wasn't on social media where they said we're going to be going through all the games and showing you stuff?
Yes.
So they released a video on Coda, but I didn't watch it yet. Did that just talk about Coda? Here's its gameplay systems?
It was just the intro.
Okay. So it's just remember this game? That's it?
Yes.
They weren't actually talking about what features are in it.
It's pretty much just we'll tell you the story. And they're gonna do that for a week, and then I think the week after they're probably gonna do Marvel Superheroes and then move on.
All right. That's something, I guess.
But yeah, back to the topic at hand, including the boss characters playable, from the arcade version of Marvel Superheroes versus Street Fighter, X-Men Children of the Atom has never been done before. The fact that you can have, and from the arcade version exclusively without ROM hacks, play as Magneto, play as Juggernaut, play as Anita, Doctor Doom, Thanos. It was done in the Marvel vs. Capcom Origins collection. So that's already been done, which was really cool. But especially in MSH versus Street Fighter, dude, Cyber Akuma is playable. Like, he does the
That's
same
awesome.
thing that the ROM hack does, where he takes both characters on the team, because that's the only way the game works. But that's the only time you could ever do that was in the PlayStation version or some shit.
PlayStation version, yeah.
Shit. What about Apocalypse? He going to be playable? Can you do Screenwave versus
Onslaught!
Dude.
I don't think
I'm
they'll make the
super
bosses. I don't think they'll make those bosses playable.
Now shut up.
They could. They legit. There is ROM hacks where you can play as Apocalypse, you can play as Onslaught.
Yeah,
but it's
yeah.
limited to those stages, right? You only have obviously one character. You can't tag or anything like that. But still, it would be really neat.
Yeah, just maybe as an extra like dumb bonus mode, like not a boss rush, but like, you know, imagine if you could control the boss, whereas like two people can like team
Sure.
up and fight.
Oh, that would be really cool.
like a local
Yeah.
mode, maybe.
And then there's other stuff like that in MVC1 specifically, because I took MVC1 the most seriously of all these games, and there are aspects of MVC1 that I personally absolutely despise. And his name is Gold War Machine and Red Venom. And if the ranked mode, and as a reminder, in the Origins collection, they had a selection to not play as secret characters. You can disable specific secret
Oh,
characters
really? I didn't know
in the
that.
online ranked. Yeah. Or even in player matches. It says you can disable like Shadow Lady or any of the secrets. So I'm like, I just throwing it out there. It'd be wonderful if we could play like a ranked mode where you don't get access to the secret characters. That would be awesome, because they did it before.
No. Just have it like Ultra Street Fighter 2, where the busted characters are available in ranked totally.
You know,
I want that.
you don't
That's just
understand, Matt.
you
Justin
don't.
will
Pure
tell
chaos.
I would love Gold War Machine being banned, because I can't stand that dumb character.
It's so dumb. Yeah, the problem with Gold War Machine, I mean, at least Red Venom, you have to land a hit, you have to win neutral, and then you have to, like, you know, kill you with a kill combo, because that's just the way Red Venom works. Gold War Machine isn't playing the same game as everybody else. He changes the entire game dynamic completely, and it's like, it's just a goddamn slog when you have to fight against this dude.
When you got like two War Machines on there, or War Machine Strider,
Yes.
and you get both supers at the same time, your life bar is going down.
Yeah, just on chip damage. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So
You gotta watch
so
that.
crazy.
But no, seriously though, if they're doing all that back end stuff and doing rollback, I don't think they're gonna allow super busted characters to be
don't
available
think so.
like in ranked. Like that's.
I think in player matches, I'm totally cool with it and shit. You know, pick whatever the hell you want.
Mess around with. Another aside, just big ups to Cyclops' PR agent this year. He has put in more work this year than he has his entire life. Because even if he starts getting some, like, you know, a bunch of fans again, like Marvel will have a comic event where he's kind of a shitter, then he'll be good again. And now with X-Men 97 and this artwork, when I was being facetious before, the fantastic artwork of Ryu and Cyclops shaking, and then the absolute hero that did the most dynamic motion ever of Cyclops going in for the handshake. Like, I've never seen a single image have that much
powerful
movement.
image.
Oh my god.
10 out of 10.
Yeah,
10 out of 10. Love that.
And
artwork.
the dude, just from even the Capcom side, even outside of the fan stuff, which is like Dipod did them doing like the Obama dap and stuff on each other.
Yeah.
The dude doing the pre-handshake where it's like now telling this story. The fact that the core artwork itself is not the same generic handshake of like two characters, mutual respect for each other. You are the leader of X-Men. I am the quote unquote like stoic leader of Street Fighter. We will shake hands to destroy the bad guys. X-Men versus Street Fighter. No. This is like two dudes that are like, bro, it's been forever. They're like, the expression on Cyclops' face and all the other characters is like, dude, this is not haphazard. This was specifically this way. Like, they miss each other, and we're finally back. Shit, I love it.
They're so happy.
So cool.
Both have a smile, and Cyclops and Ryu, not famous smilers.
Not famous smilers.
So the fact that both of them are doing it, the fact that they kind of acknowledge Morgan making googly eyes at Peter, like, all of it is amazing.
The fact that they're doing the Predator handshake.
Yeah.
Like, they changed the handshake to the goddamn, like, you son of a bitch. Like, I was like, oh my God, I'm losing it here. I'm dreaming.
Capcom Fighting Collection had some more art, you know, after like that initial Leo, I'm thinking Tekken, Leo Morgan. So hopefully we're gonna get some more Marvel vs. Capcom art.
Dude.
Love to see it.
Yeah, all the artwork, specifically for the beat 'em up, and then the beat 'em up collection had really good artwork. It's like all of the characters, like in a big, huge lineup, like Capcom tends to do. But the fighting collection, like you mentioned, Frank, is like also really good. It's just, because somehow Red Earth came out of that more the better.
Yeah.
Like the fact that Leo was so front and center, and like when I did a video on this, I'm not sure if it goes for you, Justin, or you, Max, but I did a video on this. Everyone's like, Red Earth, holy shit, play more Red Earth. I haven't seen this ever.
It's a weird game, man.
These collections do so much. As long as the main artwork is good, as long as the package is overall really solid, like these games get a bigger fan base because of it, easily, because Capcom's putting the work in.
Yeah. We have to give Capcom credit. Like, I can't believe we're here.
I'm
like,
telling
I
the
cannot believe
gravy
we're talking
train,
about
bro.
this.
First class ticket all day right now. I'm in there.
And speaking of that gravy train, Bison dropped last night in Street Fighter 6.
Yes.
And to, I think, me and Justin's like surprise, once you actually have like a training mode with a little bit of time, he gets effing crazy. You still have to like win neutral and get a bomb on him, but man, once you're there, he's insane.
Bro, once you learn once you do the trial modes, you're just like, oh, I know how to play Bison now correctly.
Yep.
Right? The whole head stomp OTG, I'm like, yo, that's sick. All right, like, and that was really cool. And then all these like big damage combo with the bombs and like pretty much like the auto time combos, right, with the bomb and everything. It just felt so good. Like playing online last night and this morning, Scissor Kick has never been that much fun until it changed it to motion.
Yeah, and the reason I think it is fun is that it isn't like a CVS2 Scissor Kick or something where it just pushes them really far away, and it's like, okay, you just sort of use this.
Yeah.
This one is like timing and spacing, so you really got to hit it from this sweet spot, and then people will try to punish you, and you whiff punish them and go for another Scissor Kick. It feels great.
It's so good. I really liked like, because I think when we played Bison at like Summer Game Fest, like obviously they're like, figure it out. So we didn't really have too much to work with. But when you play trial modes and you play CPU Bison level 8 and they just do the craziest shit to you, just like, oh, this is how you're supposed to play Bison. This is how you're supposed to do all this crazy damage and everything. And now when you see on Twitter, everyone is just like, he just does too much damage. Everyone's like, bro, he literally hits you once and you just explode like crazy.
Justin, I'm gonna ask you personally. Do you feel that that's an issue, or it's because people are saying that's like unfair? I saw like the birds mentioning so what the heck is the point of Marissa? Like Marissa's a high damage character with a lot of like weaknesses, but her damage is the trade-off. But now you get like Bison, obviously no reversal or anything, no big easy reversal, but still like you're getting access to that much damage. I'm curious what you have to think about that.
So when I played more Bison earlier this morning, I realized I could see why people complaining. Like people, like you said, the birds complain about how, oh yeah, Marissa's supposed to be the hard hitting character. Why is Bison able to do more damage than her or close to her? DJ has the fastest drive rush, but Bison has a better drive rush than DJ now. He goes like literally across the screen faster than him. So now what's the point of playing DJ? And then there's another one that's saying his Cycle Crusher is a better Honda headbutt than Honda's headbutt.
Yeah.
So he's able to anti-air like dive kicks, Lily's Condor Spire, anything that's considered airborne. It's perfectly anti-airs, and it also goes to projectiles, right? Yes. So it's just like, what's the point of Honda's headbutt at that point? It does.
It definitely has started. That's where during that event I was like, I don't know if this is as good as we hope it is, but it was happening to me last night. I kind of stopped doing it because if you react to fireballs, most of them on the normal Psycho Crusher, you're getting beaten out.
Against fireballs, I just do OD just because like it's just way faster at that point.
And is it safe?
It's not safe. It's safe from far, not safe up close.
Gotcha. Because I was trying to jab punish fools that were doing OD Psycho Crusher, and I was like, bro, I can't get a medium here. I can't get a jab. No. What am I doing?
Yeah, if it's from far, it's safe. But if they're close, like mid range, you can punish them. And if they have a mine, he's plus 10. So
it's the party starter.
Yeah, it's the party starter. So overall, he's just a character. Like I thought he was gonna be kind of bland when I first played him, but after playing him last night and seeing all the tech that people have posted from all around the world, he's really, really fun. Like I played 1 hour today, and I was able to just make a like a textbook script of just like, oh, okay, this is what you're supposed to do here, and I got like to up to 1700 MR in 1 hour, and I'm just like, okay, this character is literally. I tell people, if you are a Kimberly player and you feel like, oh, Kimberly sucks, and you are Capcom, why are you hating on Kimberly players? Play Bison. That's just
the
play Bison.
The only argument I have against it is that I think you understand how Bison Nooch works, and Bison neutral and like being good at Bison neutral is can be kind of weird and obtuse, and that's the problem I'm running into. I even got to master last night in like a few hours, but still, it was kind of a struggle for me where it's like, ooh, yeah, like Kimberly felt like, you know, neutral kind of made sense to me in a certain way, but Bison's neutral's a little weird. People are like crossing you up like crazy and bullying you. I'm like, fucking get off me, dude, you know?
All right, man. When you play Bison again, if you play Bison again, just do scissor kick. Like literally play.
I started doing it more.
Just do. Think of scissor kick as like your crouching medium kick. Like you're playing footsies and everything. Because if it counter hits, you get a combo into cycle mine. If it's a punish counter, you get a combo into OD scissor kicks for another big combo. So like everything is just scissor kick because they can't punish it. It's just really insane right now.
Yeah, and getting better at that range is important. And I think that I played more Bison in one session than I think I've ever played Bison in the history of Bisons in any other Street Fighter game.
Yeah, I was never like, I never really cared about playing Bison like in other games because I just felt like his gameplay style was just kind of like, it just didn't really make sense. It's just like, I just do shit and travel, right? But this is like kind of cool, like because he's a setup character now, right? So they actually gave him a purpose of like how he's supposed to be played.
Yeah, and I defend his crazy damage because Bison's effectively like 75% Bison, 25% Killer Instinct Cinder, where now you put this like bomb on somebody and there's specific activation moments, but you have to get there, unlike Cinder who can just pop it at any time. Yeah. But still, like that chore, they turn him into a chores character where you have to like do this thing and get really big reward. And that made him fun because every time I had a bomb on them, I'm like, all right, now time to like apply this and do something cool after, hopefully open them up or something. I think it's fair, like to be real. I think him getting like 8,000 damage or some shit in the corner is fair. And here's the reason.
Yeah.
It has the biggest tell in the world. Like this isn't Akuma who can like maybe shit out $7,000 and he can do it off of a button. Like anywhere, like I'm just gonna meter dump off of a button, like whoop your ass with Akuma, right? That happens, but Bison has to get a hit, win neutral, get a hit, apply mine, and then apply a mix-up while you obviously have the mine on you. It isn't like a shimmy is gonna work or something. No. People, bro, like, and James Chen said it, is like, dude, if you got a bomb on you, just take the fucking throw, man. Like, just accept the throw.
So I started running to people that are willing to take the throw. So So what I do is, if you're in a corner, you do throw. After that, you do drive rush back heavy kick into stand medium punch into overhead or low. GG's.
Yep.
You blow up and then you juggle. Yeah, that's a new tech.
So I was getting the same impression at the SGF event where it's like, why does he have this weird 50-50? Like, what the hell is this thing? Oh, this is meant for you get a setup with a bomb on you, and you have to choose if it's going overhead or low. We don't know how to do that yet, but once we figure it out, lo and behold, 12 hours into the character coming out, people have already figured out the setup.
Yeah, pretty much.
What do you guys think about
it's a blast.
Bison's new design and just his whole moveset, like artistically? I love how so many returning Street Fighter 6 characters, like their movesets are like their greatest hits almost.
Yes.
Like throw in some moves from Street Fighter EX, clean them up, add in a bunch of new ways to attack that make sense for the characters. I think overall Street Fighter 6 is an amazing game for that reason, just the evolutions.
What you mentioned is one of the exact things I loved about SF6, even from pre-release, where it's like, dude, these characters are more kitted than they ever have been. Like, it's like the best of CVS2 Ken with this version of Ken. It has just like everything in every character. Ryu, albeit he's not amazing in the game historically, but he has the most tools Ryu has ever had in any Street Fighter game ever.
Yeah, it's always clear that like they pick and choose the cool things, even the referential things like the Cammy stuff, like her red coat and her level 2 and everything like that. I was going to say for Bison, I downloaded him last night, just haven't had a second to boot him up, is that I am actually now, okay, in terms of story and boss positioning, because I did check up on his story mode stuff and how they're not really shoehorning him to become the boss, and JP is still the main antagonist, which is literally what my worry was before. I thought it'd be just Street Fighter V, where Gil was just like bonus boss at the end of a season, doesn't really have a huge impact. It's more like Street Fighter 4, where Seth is still clearly the guy, and Bison's just kind of there. I'm not sure if you saw, but there's this one picture from his story mode where it's just Bison is just out there completely nude, big psycho schlong just hanging out there in front of some Mad Gear guys, and they're just like, oh, like they can't handle it because Bison's like newly born or like brainwashed or whatever it is. I thought it was amazing.
I was going to ask Matt, did you pick up on the thematic similarities of Bison as a character in that story mode to another very popular character? He shows up out of nowhere naked, and then he beats up some random jobbers and takes their clothes, and then he starts hunting down other Street Fighters for their powers and shit. Like, a little Terminator, aren't you? He's literally the Terminator. Like, they just made Bison the Terminator. He's a T8. He's like a T800 with psycho power.
I need your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycles.
He's just that, dude.
So I was pretty happy with the story stuff, but I think like right after this, I'm gonna boot it up because I did enjoy playing him when we went to Summer Games Fest. I was just like Max said, like I was like I'll play this Bison because the most Bison I ever played was like CVS 1 and 2, just because the sprite was so fucking good. So like, that was the like where I put most Bison time into. So
the cool part is that he's arguably like the easiest version of Bison to use ever. Because Scissor Kick, because it's good and it's a fireball, man. You can just throw it on the fly. You don't have to sit here. I find myself when I'm playing Bison, all my legacy skill from whenever I've played the character before is always sitting on down back. And I'm like, what am I doing? What am I down backing for, dude? Like, I could just be walking in and out of range and scissor kicking people and waiting for jump. Like, but again, because that's the way Bison has been for like 25 plus years or some shit, I'm like, I'm always sitting on down back, just like waiting. And I'm like, nah, this isn't the way this character's played in this game.
Well, does Bison have his MVC projectile, that orb?
Unfortunately, no. He has no fireball in this game. That's like
dang.
That, and the teleport is like the two things that he's really missing.
Psycho shots, right?
That's something like the alpha move, that kind of stuff. He also doesn't have like he doesn't have paint defense. He doesn't have the V skill, like grab a fireball and throw it or something like that. He doesn't get those things.
Yeah.
Nothing really happened in fighting games this week, so I'm glad.
Not too many. We only talked about Marvel vs. Capcom. That's the only thing we talked about.
When we started this show in March of 2022. Did I ever think that we'd be discussing a new Marvel versus Capcom anything after that point? Because it was just the lowest of the low of like Infinite was like super dead. Max is like bringing it back with the help of a bunch of talented people with like a new visual overhaul. This stuff is just like I fighting game has been this back.
Yeah,
because in 2009 to 2013 you could lobby that, but I don't think so, not at this level.
I think it's the best. I think we're actually at the best it's ever been right now, because the heavy hitters are all doing really good. MK is the only one that's kind of faltering, but it's getting there and it's getting better, which is great. But still, like, Tekken is in an amazing spot right now. And the future for 3D fighting games is seemingly pretty bright, that like even VF could potentially come back in some way. Dude, what reality are we in where Virtua Fighter and Marvel vs. Capcom are back in some way? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Fatal fucking Fury, which is the lowest.
Fatal Fury.
The lowest I think would ever come back, because I just assume we're going to be in KOF mode forever. So
Yep. I wanted to mention this. Like, we have a problem. We have a too many fighting games problem.
And they're not good.
It's a good problem, but I mean, if you commit all your time or a lot of your time to one game, if you're serious about it, like I know I am, I want to commit more time to Tekken 8, for example.
I'm with you, dude.
I still love Street Fighter 6.
It hurts.
Theory, tell these guys to hold off a little bit. Save the DLC for the new game. Just give us some time.
We've been asking for that for like at least like a year already.
Yeah.
They're giving us time for Lydia because in the time that Lydia's been announced, what is it? They released Akuma, showed a trailer for Bison, released Bison, and like kind of I want Lydia to come out for me to get
there
back
was
in.
that. There was that period of time where Street Fighter 6 was like at a lull and it was taking way too long for things to come out. Now it's just like blitzkrieg, dude. I feel like we're going to get a Terry trailer in a few weeks or some shit.
And I didn't talk about it last episode, but like remember like early on where we were talking about Street Fighter 6 and I was just like I'm not sure if I think it was Max might have agreed at the time, but I was like outside of like really, really obvious choices like, yeah, Ken's cool, I'll play Ken. But there wasn't really a character that like 100% grabbed me, like, you know, in terms of design, storyline, gameplay, blah, 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 blah. But now that like season 2 has been announced, like Bison, I'm still more interested in Bison than ever, but Elena, Terry, and Mai are absolutely, yes, I want to play you badly.
Yes,
Elena especially. Yeah. So I'm very excited for this season in general. I know not everyone is, but like me personally, I'm like, yes, this is a season I will at least play or main 3 characters if I like them. So
yeah, I'm really happy Elena's making a comeback because her Street Fighter 4 iteration, the animation was pretty disappointing if you're going to compare it to her third, Street Fighter 3. So I can't wait to see the Street Fighter 6 animation for Elena. It's going to be sick.
That's true. They're still going to model that lady in real life that did the dance. And then which is an animation you can find on the fightersgeneration.com. You go to the Elena section.
You can see that.
We have to give a big shout out. We do have to wrap it up, and we have some more topics that we do want to talk about potentially on the next podcast. But Frank, thank you a ton, man. Seriously, Fighters Generation has been a goated website for true OG fighting game fans. And if there's anything we can do through our podcast to get more eyes and ears on it, I hope this does it.
I appreciate it so much. This has been an absolute pleasure, a lot of fun. Hope we could do it again and maybe play some games sometime.
That sounds great. Thanks a ton, Frank.
Thank you, guys.
So how about 3, 2, 1? It's Marvel, baby.
No, let's not do 2. No, cheese. Come on.
Max is above cheese.
I'm cringing out, man. Come on. No.
All right, fine.